Well, hello, and welcome to another podcast episode with Brittney Bundles. You are listening to the Brittney Bundles podcast, where we empower people through entrepreneurship. And today I want to talk about how to align spending habits with long-term goals. I frequently talk about budgeting on my YouTube channel at Brittney Bundles. I talk about the importance of financial stability and security. And in order to reach our long-term goals, there are different action steps that we need to implement in order to do so efficiently. There are so many people that have their goals as to what they want in the next, let's say, 5 years, but are not taking the necessary required steps to get there. And so everyone has a different journey, everyone has a different path, and everyone's financial structure is different. However, one thing that we can come together on is the fact that we need to be intentional on every move if we are wanting to be serious about achieving our goals. And so today we're going to talk about how budgeting doesn't limit you. In fact, it frees you. When I talk about budgeting, there's such a negative association with the word budget that a lot of people automatically believe that, budgeting is going to limit what they can do and put them in this box, so to speak. And although it may feel as if you're being limited for the time being, it may feel like you are not able to purchase what you're wanting in abundance at this time, it's really teaching you discipline. And it's also structuring your life so that you can get what you want and what you need for your future goals. There are some people that want to become homeowners. And in order to do that, there's a lot of different action steps that go into place. There are certain people that want to have financial freedom and security. And so discipline is something that needs to be implemented in order for us to do anything successfully in life. I truly believe that. Now, there are some things that just happen without discipline. There are some things that just happen by chance. But for the majority of us and for the majority of life events, that many people have shared with me and that I've gone through personally, I do know that discipline is something that is required in order to bring us to that next step, like I've mentioned. So today we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about how to align spending habits with long-term goals. If you are interested and ready to hear this episode, grab a friend. Also, go ahead and share the podcast. Share the podcast via social media. Share it via text message, via email, but go ahead and share it. Get the word out about this entrepreneurial podcast. And in just a moment, we're about to get started. Welcome back to another podcast episode with Brittney Bundles. All right. So we are back and we're talking about how to align spending habits with long-term goals. We're also talking about budgeting, the fact that it doesn't limit you, but it actually frees you. So the first point that I want to discuss is find your why and how. Okay, so let's find our why and how. Now, the why is your purpose and the how is your passion. Okay, so I'm referring to or referencing how we can generate income. How we can generate income. The first point that I wanted to start with is finding our how and finding our why, because we do need to have a plan as to how we're going to generate income in order to be able to create a spending habit, in order to be able to create a budgeting plan. We need to first have funds to budget. And so there are so many people that really don't have a clear way of how they're going to bring income into their home if their main source stops. And that's why it's so important to have multiple streams of income. It's so important to not rely on one stream. And it's so important to have backup plans, especially if you have a family and especially if you're wanting to build financial security and stability. So find your why. What do you enjoy doing? Do you enjoy teaching? Do you enjoy drawing? Do you enjoy selling? What do you enjoy doing? And then we want to pair that with how. So what do you like doing? What do you feel that you were created to do? There are some people that I talk to that were created. They really feel like they were created to sell. They feel like they were created to help others find solutions. And that is what selling is. There are some people that feel as if they were created to inspire and motivate others. And so whatever your why is, whatever your purpose is, and I have different episodes on this podcast as to how to find your purpose and how to connect it to your business. So if you do want to take a listen to some of those episodes after this podcast, I truly encourage you to do so. But once we find out our purpose, we also want to tie that to our passion. So what are we passionate about? What do we like doing? There are things that we really love doing that we have suppressed because we feel like we don't have the time, or suppressed because we feel like they're not good enough. They're not worthy of our time. It's just a hobby, or it's just something that, I can pick up in a few years. But I'm challenging everyone to get back to your passion. What do you enjoy doing? What gives you that burning feeling inside? What gives you that excitement? What gives you that fulfillment? And figuring out how we can tie that into generating income for ourselves, for our family, for our business. How can we do that? I work with entrepreneurs pretty much on a daily basis, going over different strategic plans on how we can do that, how we can better their business, how we can move their business forward, and ultimately how they can find a way to tie in what they enjoy doing to their business. There are many businesses that have started with no passion behind them, with no clear plan, with no purpose. And so being able to align your business, being able to bring back what you love into your business, being able to implement things that you love that may have not been implemented at all and still generate income is a blessing. It's a blessing. And so that's my first point. Find out your purpose and find out your passion, and let's connect those two together to figure out how we're going to generate income. And not just one stream, but multiple streams, because in order to, like I said, be able to budget, we have to have income in order to do so. So once we get the income rolling in from multiple streams, and again, I do have episodes on this podcast going over how to find your purpose and connect it to your business, as well as how to monetize your talents. Now, the second point is plan and align your long-term goals. So there are so many people out here that have a faint idea, or maybe even a clear idea of what they want their life to be like in the next 5 to 10 years, but really don't have a tailored plan as to how they're going to get there. When I noticed that I was capable of really reaching my dreams and really having the lifestyle that I wanted for myself, I started to look at my goals completely different. There were some days when I was working my 9 to 5 and people would ask me, well, where do you want to be in the next 5 years? And I would say, I want to have my own business. I don't want to have to go into a 9 to 5. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. But for my life, I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to be able to be home with my children and to be able to still generate income while doing something that I enjoy doing. And so although those were my goals, I really, I had a lot of doubt. I really had a lot of doubt behind those goals. I didn't really know if it was going to happen. I really didn't know when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen. And so I started my business. And of course, I've gone over my business journey on this podcast as well as on my YouTube at Brittney Bundles. But I've talked about how my business didn't take off immediately. And that's the same for a lot of businesses. It doesn't take off instantly for the majority of businesses. And so, especially if you're not investing a lot up front. And even if you do invest a lot up front, it still, may take some time to build your clientele, to market, to get a strategy for your business. So I really didn't, I felt like they would come true, but I really didn't know. I didn't know if my goals and my dreams would come true. Now, once I was able to transition from my 9 to 5 to being an entrepreneur full time, I kind of saw sparks. I said, okay, so this is real. You can actually really create the life that you want. I can really go ahead and set a goal and obtain it. I can really do what I want. When I got my first mortgage, okay, this is a goal that I had, and I was able to reach it. When I even opened my salon, okay, this was a dream, a vision. I had a goal and I was able to achieve it. And so learning through life experiences that we are capable of really receiving what it is we want out of life based on what we do strategically help me better plan and align my long-term goals. So now I'm looking at my goals and I'm more confident in my goals. I'm more confident in myself. I'm confident in God because I know all things work together for good for those that love him. I know that he has my best interests. I know that he is putting ideas inside of me. I know that he is keeping me safe. And so I have more confidence. And so I'm going forward in every aspect of my life, planning and aligning my long-term goals. So I recommend sitting down for a moment, figuring out where you want to be in the next 5 years, or where you want to be even next year. Where do you want to be this year? And creating an action plan to get there. Now, if you're someone and you're like, look, I want to open a brick and mortar location, I recommend mapping out how much typically it costs. Now, cost may change. Things may change as time goes on, but still having a general idea of how much you're looking to invest or how much it typically costs to invest so that you have a a plan so that you have a point to work towards. You have a target to work towards. And so I recommend doing that. Go, sit down, plan out your goals, and be strategic with them. And that also helps me become more disciplined because I'll be out shopping and there'll be people that are buying this and this and that, which is fine. Do what you want with your money. But knowing what I'm planning for, knowing what I'm trying to do, knowing what I plan to do, knowing what I will do, we want to speak things into existence. I know that I need this much money. So buying a new shirt isn't as important to me at this point as going ahead and putting this money into my business, or going ahead and putting this money into my children's fund, or putting this money into the down payment for my new home. So it's all about planning and aligning your goals with your plan, and aligning your everyday action steps with your plan. If it doesn't align with what I'm trying to do in the next year, if it doesn't align with what I'm trying to do in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, I don't need to do it. So I need to make sure that I'm very cautious of everything that I do, so that I make sure that my time is value spent. I'm making sure that I'm putting my time and my money and my efforts into things that matter and that will get me further. Does that mean that I can't splurge one day, or does that mean that I can't treat myself? It absolutely does not mean that. But it does mean that we're living intentionally and purposefully. And so even for the days that I may know that I want to splurge some days, I like to eat out. I know myself. And so I'm going to be more intentional about setting aside money in order to do that. And once that money's gone, that money's gone. But I'm not going to spend like I don't have any plans or anything else or any obligations. So that's my second point. The third point that I want to go over is save and strategically spend. So we kind of touched on strategically spending, but I want to talk about saving. So save. So let me say this: saving is definitely an essential part in aligning your spending habits and being able to move towards our goals, and also being able to become financially secure. Saving. Now, let me say this too. When you are receiving income, you do want to make sure that not all of it is going out. Now, there were times in my life where I was overextended financially. So I was making less than I was actually spending out. And I wasn't even spending my money on new shoes and clothes and bags, but I was spending the money on bills and food and gas and necessities, And so at that point, I realized that I needed to increase my income or either lower down my bills. And so what I did is I wrote a list of all of my bills, and I went through that list and I said, okay, what can I lower down? Do I need cable right now? Okay, I don't need it. So let me go ahead and mark that off and make sure there's no early termination fee, right? Right? So I had to go back. Is there a termination fee? Okay, I'm out of my contract. Good. Okay. All right. So let me mark that out. Also, I'm paying for this. I think it was Sirius Radio, and there's nothing against Sirius Radio. I'm just, going through some things that I was paying for. Okay, do I need this right now? I was going through some other things, and I said, okay, let's check this off. Let's check this off. And after I got done checking things off and reducing some plans and packages, I noticed that I was still over obligated. And so at that point, I said, okay, so now I need to increase my income, which is always good to do. If you can look at ways to increase income and to add additional streams, that's always beneficial. So I looked in and I said, okay, so what else can I do? That's where creativity and knowing where your purpose and your passion lies is very essential and crucial. So going into what I like doing, going into what I was created to do, and finding a way to monetize my talents and skills has really helped me bring multiple streams of income. When I say monetize your talents and skills, a lot of people have emailed me and referred to a business. And that's great. That's what I'm referring to too. But don't limit yourself on just one business. Don't limit yourself on one stream. There's still other streams out there. There's different investment streams. There are different businesses that you can do. There are different services that may be outside of your business that you can look into. You may want to create a whole separate business, or you may want to have two at this point. Whatever the case may be, don't limit yourself. So realize that the options are limitless, and also that you really hold the power as to what you want to do with your life. Be as creative as you want to be. That's one reason that I love being an entrepreneur, because there's no one telling me, well, Brittney, you're being a little bit too creative. And, no one told me that in those specific words working a 9-to-5, but their actions definitely showed that, And actually, I'll take it back. I did have managers that would say, look, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We're not looking to do that. So I love the fact that my creativity is not limited being an entrepreneur. So Save. We're going to get back to saving. Make sure that you are generating multiple streams and saving the money that you have. Just because you see the money available in your account does not mean that that is money that should be spent. And so I used to be the same way. I used to be someone where I got my money and I would just spend, especially when I would get taxes. I would say, wow, okay, well, let me go ahead and just spend, spend, spend. And so I realized that everything needs to be strategic. Everything needs to be strategic. And so I wish, some of the years that I was getting back lump sum of taxes and things like that, I really wish that I would have spent my money differently. And so I'm here on this podcast just explaining to everyone things that I've learned and that I wish I knew back then, so that I would have been able to be a little bit further. Now, we're not going to cry over spilled milk, right? So we're not going to talk about what, I should have, would have, could have for too long. But it's important for me to acknowledge where I could have improved back then so that I can know what to do in the future. So save your money. That doesn't mean, again, that you can't spend, but you definitely should have a set amount that you are saving every time you get money. So every time I get money at the, and I tally up how much I've made during this month, I go ahead and I make sure that I am saving. That's essential. That is something I have to do. I've created a video on my YouTube channel, again, at Brittney Bundles, on how I pay myself as an entrepreneur, and the percentage that I save is included in that video if you do want to check it out. And then also strategically spending. So everything that I spend, what am I spending it for? What benefit is it going to provide to me in the long term? What value does it place on my life? And also, have I set aside the money to be able to spend? Have I done that yet? There are days that I did not meet my income goal. There are days that I just didn't meet it. And so if that's the case, I know that my spending habits are going to be adjusted. Okay, look, I'm not going to spend this because I didn't make this. And just because you make it doesn't mean that you need to spend it. So a lot of times what happens is the more we're making, the more we spend. And it kind of defeats the purpose. You're making more this year, but you're also spending more this year. So how much did you really end up saving? How much did you really end up investing towards your financial stability into your future? Now, the fourth point that I want to talk about is just because you have it doesn't mean you have it. And this is a mindset. So we kind of touched on that too just a moment ago. Just because you see the money in your account does not mean that you have it for that specific item or for that specific event. And so when we're looking at aligning our spending habits with our long-term goals, we want to make sure that we are changing our mindset and that we're disciplining ourselves to know the difference between a need and a want. And we're also disciplining ourselves to know when to say no, when to tell ourselves no. That's one of the hardest challenges that I faced in life, is telling myself no. Me telling myself no. No one else is going to tell me no. No one else is going to say, no, Brittney, you can't use your cards. No one else is going to say, no, Brittney, you can't buy this. It's up to me. It's up to me. I'm grown now. So before, when I was living with my mom, living with my dad, and they would say, okay, well, look, you can spend this, you can't spend this. This is your allowance. You have some kind of restraints there so that you won't go overboard. But when we become adults, a lot of us are just on our own. And if we haven't built the mindset and the discipline early on to be able to say no, to be able to distinguish between, like I said, needs and wants, it can be very challenging to change our mindset and to change our level of living to one that's more healthy and beneficial for us in the long run. There were times that I would literally splurge almost, hundreds, even thousands of dollars on things that really did not benefit me long term. And again, I'm not saying that you can't treat yourself, but when you are constantly spending and constantly finding yourself in the same position that limits you from moving forward, you may want to reevaluate what you're doing. That's why I say budgeting doesn't limit you. It actually frees you, because having a budget is having discipline, and having discipline allows you to be able to receive the fruits of your labor in abundance if you structure it correctly. So instead of me looking at it as, oh, I don't want to be on a budget, oh, I don't need to be on a budget, I'm looking at it as, no matter how much I'm making, I'm still on a budget. And a lot of people that worked in the financial industry with me as financial advisors had that mindset, had that mentality that they would teach towards. Budgeting, no matter how much you make, you still want to have a budget as to what's going where, how much I'm spending here. What's the amount that I'm going to say no to, instead of just living and spending every day as if money's not going to go away. So it's the mindset. It's being able to realize that just because I have it doesn't mean I have it. It's being able to Stop trying to impress. That's another thing that has stopped a lot of us from reaching our long-term goals and actually being able to align our spending habits with what we're wanting to do in the future, because we're so worried about what others think. Do others think I have money? If I buy this, will it look like I have money? Well, if I do this, will it seem like I'm more successful than I am? And once I stopped caring, when I really started to become financially secure, and when I really started to be comfortable in my business, and be able to live off of my business income, and then, transition to entrepreneurship full time, I really stopped caring about what other people thought. I just didn't care. I did care before. There would be a lot of times where I would have my 9 to 5, and I would just say, look, I want to show people that I have money. I want to show people that I have it. Now, I didn't take it to the extreme as some people do, but I did. I did want to go and splurge, and I did want to buy this, and I did want to buy that. And I actually had a habit of spending. Now, I never, spent to the point that I just couldn't buy food, or I couldn't buy gas or anything like that. However, I still had very unhealthy spending habits. I did. And so now at this point in my life, knowing that it really doesn't matter what anyone thinks I have, it really doesn't matter what anyone thinks that I gross. All that matters is that I know what I'm doing, and that I know the plan that I have, and that I'm moving towards it. Like I said before, at first they'll ask why, later they'll ask how. That is my favorite saying, because it's so true. People that may be looking at you as if, you don't have any money because you're budgeting and you're strategically aligning your spending habits with what you want to obtain in the future, may think, wow, do they have money? Wow, are they hurting for this? And they may wonder, why are you not buying this? And why aren't you treating yourself here? And then once they see you actually obtaining those huge goals, those long-term goals that you've been working towards, a lot of people will ask, well, how did you do it? Well, how? So like I said, at first, why, and then later, how? So again, just because you have it doesn't mean you actually have it. We need to learn to transition our mindset into a mindset of prosperity, a mindset of discipline, and a mindset of strategic living. Now, the fifth point that I wanted to point out is become credit conscious. So although we're making sure that we are implementing healthy spending habits, we do also want to educate ourselves on the importance of credit, on the importance of being able to have other options for cash flow for our business if we need to. A lot of times you'll see certain entrepreneurs apply for lines of credit or payroll options or even cash flow options. And some people will take the money right from their checking or savings account. And so being an entrepreneur, I love having options. I love being able to not always have to touch my money in my savings account. I love not having to touch the money in my business checking account. I love not having to always take my money pretty much from any account to be able to put back into my business. I love the fact that I have an option. So if I don't want to touch my money, which I strongly recommend you don't touch your savings, but there are times that I have touched my savings, moving money around, and okay, well, I'm gonna take this out, and then I know I'm gonna be able to put it back in this date. And so what I've learned to do is don't touch your savings. I recommend having multiple accounts where you don't even see your savings, out of sight, out of mind, right? And then also becoming credit conscious. So like I said, being able to build your credit, learning what to do to be able to build a healthy credit report, not just a score, but a healthy credit report. And then also being able to budget enough money to pay off any collections that you may have. There are so many people that are spending money, and I was one of them, and did not take care of my obligations. And collections are an obligation. Bills are an obligation. So like I said, just because you have it doesn't mean you have it. If I have extra money and I'm just itching to spend it, then I'm going to look to see, do I have any collections? Do I have any medical collections? Do I have any, I don't have any student loans, but just speaking in general, do you have any student loans out there? Are there any past collections that you thought you paid that you didn't? So keeping a close look on your credit report and making sure that you're monitoring how you pay your bills as well, to make sure that nothing else gets on your credit report, and also to make sure that what's on your credit report is able to be cleaned up. Now, again, once you pay your collections, I say again because I've mentioned this in a YouTube video on my channel, once you clear up your pay off the collections, the collections will still reflect on your credit report as, paid. So if a loan officer is pulling your credit report, they'll still be able to see, more than likely, depending on the bureau that they pull from, that this account was in collections before, but they'll be able to see that you paid it. So it's really important to make sure that we're aligning our spending habits in a way that also allows us to make sure that we are paying obligations, we're paying bills, and we're not getting behind. So before I'm looking at things that I want, I'm making sure that I settle my needs. And my needs are making sure that my credit is in a good position, because who knows what I'll need it for, And also making sure that I'm in good position to be able to continue to invest in my business, invest in my dreams, and invest in my family long term. So I really hope that this podcast episode helped. Ultimately, I just want to remind everyone out there to live strategically and invest for your long-term goals, not just for today, not just for next week, but really for what you want to happen in your life. Remember, we have one life to live, and there's so much that we can do to impact others as well as ourselves. There's so much that we can do to really turn our life into a wonderful testimony. And it all starts with what we want to do. It all starts with what we believe we can do. It all starts with what we're going to do to start moving toward what we can do. It all starts within. So I'm challenging everyone to look back and identify what it is you want to do and move towards it with all of your might, while strategically planning and having a mindset to overcome, and also a mindset to strategically spend, because money does give us options, and we want to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves in any aspect. If you do want to be a guest on the podcast, please email me. My email address is Btalks. It's BTALKS @yahoo.com. I'd love to have you on to share your entrepreneurial journey, your insight, your skills, and even to promote your business. If you would like to connect with me on social media, I am on YouTube at Brittney Bundles. That is Brittney, BRITTNEY, Bundles, BUNDLES. I am on Instagram at Brittney_Bundles, Facebook Brittney Bundles, and Twitter Brittney Bundles. Until next time, I'll talk to you on the next podcast episode.